welcome to the Life of Purpose. Today we're continuing our way through the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, as we are looking at how do we live an authentic Christian life.
Yet today we're looking at particularly two passages that are somewhat related about how to be meek and also what it means to be merciful. And Jesus indicates that if we are to have a life that is blessed and that is really full as he hopes for us, that we learn what it means to be meek and we learn how to be a person who has mercy. And so the first of these is found in Matthew chapter 5:5. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The Message Bible captures it well also. And it says, you're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more and no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that cannot be bought. Now that's a powerful statement.
And it goes against what we always think of when we think about the meek. Normally when we think about the meek, we think about the downtrodden. We think about those who have been subjugated. We think about the weak. Weak and meek just seem to go together. And that's really not what's being discussed here at all. I mean, that's not what Jesus is saying, that's who we're supposed to be in order to inherit the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, there's a saying that says that person is comfortable in their own skin. And it took me a while to figure out what that means, but they truly have come to a place where they're not bothered by what other people think about them. They're not really, they have goals in life, but those goals are not making them obsess about how they live or are trying to attain things that are too great for them to attain. They're just comfortable with who God made them and how they live out life. And these people I found the most happiness in life and the most blessedness in life because they don't have to really please anybody. They're just comfortable with who they are.
Right. I mean, the Bible gives us a couple of examples of people that the Bible calls meek. One is Moses. Moses, it says in the book of Numbers, very meek above all the men who were upon the face of the earth. But Moses was not downtrodden or subjugated or any of those things. He wasn't weak, and he wasn't really without a temper. He wasn't particularly patient.
He walked in to see Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go."
Right. I mean, he had a boldness about
him.
He was charismatic in so many ways. I mean, he unites the people. He takes them out of the land. He leads them through this trackless wilderness, getting them back toward the promised land of Canaan. And so, obviously, the idea of meek is not quite what we think of. And the other person the Bible describes as meek is Jesus. And we think of him from the hymn where it says, gentle Jesus, meek and mild. But think about him. His kind of meekness was also a bit startling because he stood up and challenged, to the challenges of anyone that came at him. The greatest and most powerful people in the Jewish world, they would come at him and ask questions, and he would go, and let me ask you a question. And he would challenge them right back. He stands toe-to-toe with the Roman governor who is trying him. And even on the cross, he doesn't scream for mercy. Instead, he prays for those who have put him there and offers for one of the thieves on the cross next to him to join him in paradise. And so the meekness is not about being downtrodden and weak, but instead the meekness is about knowing who you are and who God's called you to be and created you to be and being very comfortable with that.
Yeah, we often think that a meek person doesn't get angry or they're kind of scared to be in leadership or to do something like that. What confounded the Roman leaders was that Jesus, he would say, well, my kingdom's not of this world, so I'm not really worried about what you have to say. I'm going to keep doing what I was called to do, and that's going to please some of you, and it's not going to please some of you, but that's quite okay. And there were times that he got angry and he got mad, but that was okay too.
Yeah, William Barclay, when he was defining this beatitude, he said maybe the way it should be translated is, blessed is the person who is always angry at the right time and never angry at the wrong time. And I think that's pretty much Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, and I probably Moses, though I think maybe Moses was angry a couple of extra times.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. I mean, one person, Ellsworth Callis, tried to describe meekness one time by talking about a Clydesdale horse. Now, he said a Clydesdale horse is a massive animal, a draft horse that its muscles ripple as it will pull the wagon. But even though it could cause great chaos, even though it has the power to do a lot, it follows the reins where the reins tell it to go. It follows its training. It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't just do what it can. It does what it should.
You know, a person who is a leader who learns meekness, and I think if you're a great leader, you have to learn that. I mean, we've seen tyrannical kind of leaders. Mm-hmm. We've seen leaders who aren't really leaders. They're just kind of being pushed around by other people. But a person who is really a meek and strong leader, they don't have to have control of everything. They're able to delegate that out and trust that to other people. They're able to listen instead of always having to speak. Mm. They give credit to others and they give praise to other people. They don't have to receive all the accolades themselves. They develop others into leadership because they want others to succeed besides them. They're so comfortable in their own success that they're not afraid for someone else to succeed at what they're doing. And they're willing to be open to help from other people. They recognize, I don't know everything, but other people can add to my life.
Right.
And it takes a really strong person, a really meek person, to have those characteristics.
Yeah, I mean, the secret of meekness, of finding happiness in being meek to inherit the earth, is not having nothing. But instead, it's having the power and the resources and the strength, and yet not being influenced by them, being made arrogant by them, by sort of, being obnoxious with them. It's just knowing that you've been given these things to use for good. And so those that are happy are at peace with all of that, and they're at peace with God and with themselves, and they know that their true worth isn't in the power they possess or the things they have and all of that, but it's by having discipline over those things to do the most with them.
They get the land, the earth, as Jesus said, not by having to conquer it with their great power, but because they're comfortable in their own selves and they inherit it.
Right.
It just becomes natural because it's not their goal.
Right.
Their goal is something else. Now, the other passage that we're looking at is from Matthew chapter 5, verse 7. And it says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy." And the Message describes it as, you're blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, you find yourself cared for.
Well, and truly, being merciful is hard work.
Yeah.
Because being merciful, it requires an emotional investment. To be merciful to someone in need. To be merciful means you may have to give up time. You may have to give up resources. You may have to invest yourself in another person, in another situation. To be merciful, it requires work.
And you may not get a payout from that mercy.
No.
It may just be someone that you'll never see again. But God calls upon us to live that merciful kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do live that kind of merciful kind of life, then God seems to be saying that that mercy then comes back to us. But there's the flip side of that. If we don't live a merciful kind of life, then we have a tendency for unmercy to come find us.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't really care about anyone else, if you don't show mercy to others, then sometimes it seems that we're still surprised when we don't receive mercy back. But, the reality is we find happiness and we find our lives blessed when we aren't remaining safely detached and objective from everyone and everything around us. But when we get involved in the lives of other people and we care about other people, and granted, that's not easy. I'm not a person that does that very well at all. But when I do, I always find that it's more of a blessing, I feel like, to me than it is the other person. It's amazing how there's almost an immediate response in my soul, even though I struggle to be merciful.
There's a parable that Jesus tells in Matthew 18 about a king who forgives this servant this ridiculous amount of money. I think I did the calculations, and it was like $5 billion.
Yeah, massive amount.
And that servant then leaves the presence of the king and goes to the guy down the street that owes him the equivalent, of I think it was $10,000 equivalent today's.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you got to give me your money. I mean, and he starts getting angry and showing no mercy to this man. And then it says the king comes back and says, hey, pay up the $5 billion. Mm-hmm. There's a reminder to us that if we are to truly be happy, we have to show mercy to other people. And that's how God shows mercy to us. But if we don't live that way, then we'll never quite find the happiness, the blessedness, the purposefulness that we talk about, because we have missed God's most authentic life for us.
Yeah, in these two lessons, we find that call to be meek, to realize all that we have been given, but not use it to abuse power out there or to show status, but to take what we've been given and to use it in a disciplined way to be a blessing, because that's what it's been given to us for, is to be a blessing. And what better way to use the resources we've been given and the life we've been given and all that we've been given than to be merciful to someone else that's in need.
Absolutely.